Welcome to the Florida Gardener Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer, and before we get started today, I wanted to thank LLC 917 for the Apple Podcast review they recently left. LLC 917 writes, "Such a helpful podcast. I'm new to gardening and only recently back in Florida after many years away, and I'm learning so much through these episodes. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Smiley face." Well, thank you so much for the review. As cheesy as it sounds, it really does warm my heart to read these positive reviews. It means a ton and is so appreciated. And by the way, I'm sure the name LLC 917 was just auto-generated, but doesn't it totally sound like a droid from Star Wars? I couldn't help but think of R2-D2. He's the cutest. All right, on with the show. Today's episode is a listener request from Notes of Vintage. Notes of Vintage commented on Instagram asking if we could do an episode on cut flowers. They wrote, "I'd love episodes on cut flowers for the area and a cut flower garden. I have major Instagram envy at all of the northern flower gardeners." So thanks for the request, Notes of Vintage, and today is your lucky day because it is all about just that. I mean, what's more fun than discussing cut flower gardens? So let's dive right in. In theory, you can cut any flower, put it in a vase, and call it a cut flower, right? So what makes the flowers at the grocery store or at the florist shop so special? Just like rooted plants at the garden center or nursery, cut flowers are bred to have specific traits or qualities. Most cut flowers have long, firm, thick stems. A firmer, hardier stem can uptake more water, i.e. stay hydrated and last longer. A good cut flower doesn't immediately wilt or flop over as soon as you cut it and place it in a vase. It's also going to be less likely to snap or break. And a long stem allows you to be more creative with your floral arrangement or bouquet, giving you the ability to trim to the appropriate length. Having the flexibility with flower height is important for floral design. If all the flowers maxed out at 6 inches, we would be in trouble. Most of the cut flowers you see at the grocery store or order from a florist are flown in from all over the world, especially South America and Western Europe, with a large majority coming from Colombia, Ecuador, and the Netherlands. I'm sure the Netherlands comes at no surprise to you, with tulips and other bulbs being huge spring hits. And a guy at my wholesale shop told me they import a lot from Italy too. Stems are transported in refrigerated airplane holds. Yep, they are flown across the ocean so that we can enjoy them for a few days before throwing them out. Pretty wild, right? There's a big move for local flowers right now, and small flower farms are popping up all over the country, including in Florida. It's big in other parts of the world too. England has a ton of small local flower farms. I follow a few British flower farmers on Instagram, and oh my goodness, talk about flower envy. So let's create a mini flower farm in our own yard. And don't fear, if all you have is a balcony or a patio, you can still grow these plants in containers. If possible, bigger containers are better than smaller ones. I love a good 20-inch diameter pot. You can even put a caddy under it, that way you can wheel it around. Or maybe you do like one large rectangular planter. But this is going to allow your flowers to get nice and big compared to putting them in a smaller container, which is really going to restrict their roots. We're going to start with the annuals because they tend to be the most common type of cut flower. You start them from seed, they grow fast, and they have gorgeous eye-catching flowers. Annuals go hard. While they don't have a long life, they certainly make the most of it, blooming profusely, which is exactly what we want. While there are many annuals to choose from, I kept a few things in mind while creating this list. 1, easy to grow. These are flowers that are super simple to start from seed, almost fail-proof. 2, quick maturity. These guys only need 60 to 90 days to reach maturity. 3, low pest disease issues. No chemicals will be needed here. And 4, long vase life. They aren't going to flop over as soon as you cut them and place them in the vase. Now, no sponsorship or affiliation, but I purchase almost all my annual cut flowers online from Johnny's Selected Seeds and Baker Creek. You'll hear me mention both of these seed suppliers throughout this episode. It's because I love their selection, not because they pay me. Now, we're not going to get into it here, but if you're interested in seed saving, i.e. not paying for more seeds each time you finish a season, you need to understand the differences between hybrid seeds and open pollinated. You can check out episode 2, Seed Starting, What You Need to Know, to learn all about that. But don't worry, if you're just trying to have a good time and grow some flowers without taking a seed saving lesson, or frankly, you just aren't at the point where seed saving is even on your radar, no sweat. You can grow flowers without understanding this. It's just an FYI for those that are trying to get into seed saving. Okay, so let's dive into some annuals. So my first annual cut flower on the list is Gomphrena. Oh my goodness, Gomphrena. Seriously, the sweetest flowers ever. They are round or globe-shaped little cuties, hence their other name, globe amaranth. They remind me of the bubble gum that was in the old school gumball machines. Seriously, they look like nature's candy. And they come in a ton of different colors, just like gumballs. Johnny Selected Seeds has a fantastic variety. Strawberry Fields is a popular red one. There's also Raspberry Cream, Audrey White, a purple variety, and many, many more. This is an extremely hardy flower. It will last forever in a vase. They also make great dried or pressed flowers. And they're very easy to start from seed, even in the hot heat and humidity of a Florida summer. Little to no pest and disease issues here too. You'll have mature flowering plants in about 90 days. FYI, when you're on Johnny Selected Seeds or Baker Creek looking at the descriptions, I wouldn't pay too much attention to the temperatures required for germination. Generally speaking, I tell you, yes, definitely pay attention to the descriptions for the seeds that you're going to buy. But with these specific flowers we're discussing today, you can totally disregard the germination temperature part of the description. All of these can be successfully germinated in the 80s, even 90s. Temps they provide are general guidelines. For example, most of the Gomphrena on Baker Creek and Johnny Selected Seeds says 70 to 78 degrees for germination. But they can absolutely successfully germinate in much warmer weather. If you venture off this list, pay attention to the temperatures, but otherwise, just trust that I've done the research and put in the hours of hands-on growing experience for all of these. Yep, all of them. Number 2 on the list is Celosia. Celosia wins the award for most unique flowers. They literally look like they are from another world and come in vibrant neon colors. They give me outer space alien vibes, and I'm here for it. Now, there are many different types of Celosia. Some have upright feathery blooms with a flame-like appearance. Some look similar to wheat or the soft fuzzy plumes of fountain grass, and still others are more compressed and have an unusual shape. They look similar to a piece of tropical coral. I love Celosia because there is so much variety. You can make a cut flower garden just using different types and colors of Celosia. Fun fact, they're related to Gomphrena, the yummy gumball candies. They are both in the Amaranthaceae family, which I just call the Amaranth family. So just like Gomphrena, Celosia are extremely hardy flowers. They'll last forever in a vase. They're also easy to start from seed, even in the hot heat and humidity of a Florida summer. They have little to no pest and disease issues and grow pretty quickly. You'll have mature flowering plants in 90 days. You can go with either Johnny Selected Seeds or Baker Creek for these. I think Johnny's has a better variety, but Baker Creek has a really unique green one called Green Sylphid. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's green like the color, and then the other word is SYL, P as in Peter, HID. And I know what you're thinking. I don't care about a green flower. I want all the pinks and purples. But it appeals to me because you can use it in lieu of foliage, like as a filler. Green is a neutral color in the plant world. So just some food for thought. Lastly, this goes for all of the annuals we discussed today. Make sure you select a variety that has a longer stem. For example, Baker Creek has a celosia that only reaches 8 to 10 inches tall. That's overall height, including the flower head, so you won't have much stem to work with. The majority of the celosia and other annuals we discussed today are primarily grown for cut flowers, so you shouldn't run into this issue a ton. Most have longer stems. But just FYI, read the description. See how I contradict myself there? Earlier, I'm telling you disregard the germination temps, but definitely pay attention to the stem size. You're welcome. All right, number 3. It wouldn't be a cut flower garden without some sunflowers, right? You have a couple options here. Everyone is familiar with the iconic single stem sunflowers. They are stunning in an arrangement. And sunflowers have to be the easiest to grow. I mean, even first graders are growing them for school projects. So if they can do it, so can you. Now, you guys, you don't need to grow the really giant sunflowers. Those things can get up to 14 feet tall, and the flower heads are 12 to 18 inches across. Like, what are you going to do with those? So skip the urge and pass on that one. Just go with a normal size, which is still pretty big for a sunflower. Both Baker Creek and Johnny's Selected Seeds have great options. I'm looking at one right now called Pro Cut Peach. It has 4 to 6 inch wide blooms and a total plant height of 60 to 72 inches. That's perfect. Now, the con with the single stem sunflowers is it's one and done. Each plant produces one flower and one flower only. Well, what if you want more than one sunflower per plant? Let me introduce you to branching sunflowers. They produce more than one flower per plant. Firecracker is an adorable dwarf branching sunflower that Johnny Selected Seed sells. The flowers are 4 to 6 inches wide and they have 16 to 36 inch long stems. You're looking at an overall plant height of 36 to 46 inches to give you an idea. It's a great little cut flower and matures in 50 to 60 days. That's very, very quick, you guys. And FYI, not all branching sunflowers are dwarf. They also make some bigger branching varieties for those who are interested. Soraya, I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's S as in Sam, Oraya, is a fantastic branching sunflower. The branches are 35 to 48 inches. They can yield as many as 20 to 25 stems per plant. And the overall plant height is 50 to 70 inches. This branching sunflower is a plant that may benefit from pinching. Pinching encourages branching and longer stems. It's called pinching because the best way to do it is with your fingers. You are pinching young shoots, which are still soft and tender. It should be easy to simply pinch the stem with your thumb and forefinger. This encourages the plant to grow fuller or bushier and produce more flowers. It can also help reduce the amount of staking you have to do because the plant will be less top-heavy. Pinching encourages them to branch out sooner. So instead of maybe growing a tall single stem and then branching at the top, it will start branching when it's shorter and become less likely to topple over or need staking. Timing is key with pinching. You don't want to do it when the plant is mature. It's too late at that point, but you also don't want to do it too early. Wait for a few leaves to appear. Once you have 2 to 3 sets of leaves, you're ready. There are plenty of YouTube tutorials on how to properly pinch seedlings, so just watch one of those and you'll be a pro in no time. FYI, not all plants benefit from pinching. You shouldn't pinch plants that don't branch naturally. This works only on plants that eventually branch by themselves. Think of it as encouraging your plants to branch out early, and it only works when the plant is young. You want soft, new growth. All right, number 4 on the list is Mexican sunflowers. While not true sunflowers, these are a must for any Florida cut flower garden in my opinion. They give you so much bang for your buck. They have to be one of the easiest to grow and provide non-stop blooms. Their flowers are about 3 inches wide and the stems are 60 to 72 inches long. They are available in a fiery orange and a yellow variety too. They look like tall daisies. Each plant produces tons of flowers and they easily self-seed, which means less work for you. And hey, when I'm creating a cut flower garden, really any garden, I'll take all the help I can get. Although the real sunflower is a classic cut flower, I think I might just choose the Mexican sunflower over it if I had to pick, just because you get so many flowers per stem and it's just so easy to take care of. It really is a great value and they don't mind poor soil or the heat. Number 5 on the list is marigolds. And trust me, these ain't your grandma's marigolds. Say goodbye to the classic low-growing potted marigolds from the garden center. Get those out of your head. This is the new and improved marigold, Marigold 2.0. I'm not going to try to deceive you here. They aren't Delilah's by any stretch of the imagination, but if you're looking for a large dinner plate focal flower, one that has a more sophisticated appearance, but also takes the heat and humidity like a boss, this is the lady for you. They have gorgeous 2.5 to 3 inch blooms. Yes, the flowers are up to 3 inches wide. Baker's Creek even has one that can get up to 5 inches wide. These marigolds also have long, strong stems, perfect for a vase, mason jar, or a bouquet. My absolute favorite is White Swan from Johnny's Selected Seeds. It's a yummy cream-colored puffball. It reminds me of a giant marshmallow. And just like all marigolds, this one is easy to start from seed, loves the heat and humidity, low pest and disease issues, and as an extra bonus, it matures in as little as 65 to 75 days. And while you don't have to pinch these marigolds, they may benefit from it. Number 6 is tick seed. Tick seed is the Florida version of poppies, at least in my opinion. If you're looking for a smaller, dainty, or more delicate flower to add to your arrangements, look no further than this little lady. To me, it's a great little pressed flower too, if you're into that. These lovely yellow flowers are so darling and cheery. A great filler flower. I recommend starting it from seed. I suggest buying a Florida native variety of tick seed from floridawildflowers.com. That's Florida, all spelled out, wildflowers.com. And don't be deceived. Although tick seed has a slender stem, it still holds up pretty dang well in a vase. Now you might be surprised that zinnias were not on the list. Powdery mildew loves zinnias. In the summer in South Florida, it's almost a guarantee that your zinnias will get it. Central and North Florida, you might be all right. But essentially, it creates a white powdery coating on the leaves. It's a pain in the butt. It ends up impacting the flowers too. I hate it. And that's not to say you can't grow them during a South Florida summer. They certainly will grow, but you'll need to get on a regular fungicide schedule, spraying weekly. You guys know the drill with me at this point. I don't like high maintenance plants. There are so many flowers that provide tons of beauty and color and don't need to be constantly babysat. So at least for me personally, I'd rather skip the zinnias and grow something else. Now let's discuss plant stakes. Many of the annuals we just discussed grow pretty tall and have large flowers, so they may need support. Grab some bamboo stakes and twine to help prevent your flowers from falling over. And when in doubt, opt for the longest stakes you can find. It's better for the stakes to be longer than what you need rather than too short. Now, when it comes to planting seeds, I recommend starting most of them in containers and then transplanting to the yard once they have 2 to 3 sets of true leaves. You don't need fancy seed starting trays. You can use old plastic pots from the nursery, red Solo cups, coffee containers, yogurt cups, whatever you have lying around. As long as you can drill drainage holes at the bottom, it'll work. And all of these seeds can be started outside. You don't need to bring them inside or use grow lights or anything like that. If you want to learn more about seed starting, definitely check out episode 2, Seed Starting, What You Need to Know. And here's a tip. When you're ready to transplant your seedlings into the yard, if your landscape soil needs some lovin', try mixing in a few inches of compost into the bed. And you can use popsicle sticks to mark where you plant your seedlings. That way you don't get them confused with weeds, which you'll want to pull out so they don't compete with your flowers. You can also lay down some mulch. Not only does this help with weed suppression, but it also helps keep the soil moist so your seedlings stay hydrated. FYI, sunflowers and Mexican sunflowers prefer to be direct sown. They have long, deep tap roots that you don't want to disrupt, so it can be better to plant them directly into the ground rather than starting them in a container and then moving them into the field or yard. And if critters give you a hard time, try laying down some garden mesh or netting over your young seedlings. The squirrels may try to dig up your seeds, and the rabbits like to munch on young new growth. But as the plants mature, you'll have less critters to worry about. Most animals aren't as interested as the plants get larger. They want the seeds or the young tender leaves, so you don't have to use the garden mesh forever, only in the early stages. All right, so let's discuss succession planting, aka staggering planting your seeds so you have new ones ready to be harvested every couple or few weeks instead of planting the entire packet at once and then having one big harvest. Probably more flowers than you need, and then that's it. You're done. For the sake of this conversation, let's say you've decided to grow Sorea, which was that larger branching sunflower that can yield as many as 20 to 25 stems per plant. Okay, so I believe you have 50 seeds per packet for that one. Now you don't want to plant all 50 on the same day because then you'll have 50 flowers needing to be harvested around the same time. And unless you plan on selling at the local farmer's market, you probably don't need that many for your kitchen windowsill. Instead, you can probably just plant 5 sunflower seeds every 2 to 3 weeks. Because remember, these aren't single stem sunflowers. They branch and have multiple flowers per head. So if you have a packet of 50 seeds and you succession plant 5 sunflower seeds every 3 weeks, that means you can enjoy fresh cut sunnies for 6 months. Yes, that's half a year. Everyone's succession planting schedule is a little bit different. It can be weekly, bi-weekly, even monthly. And not everything needs succession planting because some plants have a long harvest window. In other words, each flower blooms for a long time on the stem. There's no rush to harvest the flower before it dies. Gomphrena and celosia have long harvest windows, whereas once a sunflower starts to open, you have about a week until it looks sad and starts to die. So it all depends on what you're growing. But truthfully, if this is just too much, like it's hurting your brain, then don't do it. You can always just plant what you want, when you want, and get a feel while you're out in the garden. You'll begin to notice which plants continue to bloom or have hardier blooms, and you don't need to keep planting new seeds all the time versus the flowers that need to be planted again and again. Okay, so let's fast forward 60 to 90 days and our flowers are ready to harvest. Yay! Here are a few tips to maximize vase life. Number 1, cut your flowers early in the morning or in the evening. This is when they are the most hydrated and looking and feeling their best. Cutting in the middle of the day can cause wilting. During the middle of the day, especially in Florida, flowers are hot and thirsty. They're just trying to make it through the afternoon, just like us. So if you cut them during this time, it can lead to a shorter vase life as the plant will be stressed. Number 2, harvest your flowers before they open all the way. This is especially true for sunflowers. Cut them when the petals just begin to open and before they have opened off the face completely. In other words, harvest the stems when the blooms are about halfway open. With some, you can do it even earlier when the buds are completely closed. Don't worry, the flowers will continue to bloom and develop. It just gives you more time to enjoy them blooming inside your home rather than waiting to cut them until they are fully open and only getting a few days to enjoy them before they die. Fun fact, this is what the flower farmers do. Think about it. Many of our flowers are shipped from across the globe, and getting them to us involves an intricate and delicately balanced supply chain of workers, farmers, wholesalers, airlines, cargo ships, traders, florists, and supermarkets. So if farmers waited until the flowers were completely open, the end user, you or I, would not have very long to enjoy the flowers at home. I'm willing to bet that many would already be dead by the time they were delivered to the grocery store. Now, because plants such as Gomphrena and Celosia have such a long harvest window, cutting the flowers early isn't as important with them. Even if you cut them towards the end of their life, they can last weeks in a floral arrangement if properly taken care of. Okay, my third tip for a long vase life is clean the stem. You want to remove the lower and bottom leaves. You want a clean stem. You can leave some leaves at the top if you want, but you don't want any sitting in the water for 2 reasons. 1, it causes bacteria to build, which is not good for the flowers to drink. And 2, it looks messy. The next time you get flowers, pay attention to how they are presented. Whether you buy them wrapped up in some cute craft paper from the local farmer's market or from the grocery store, they usually have a clean stem. So number 4 on the list is cut the bottom of the stem at a 45-degree angle. So yes, as soon as you bring your flowers inside, you're going to clean the stems and then you're going to cut them at a 45-degree angle. You don't have to make huge cuts. You don't need to take off more than 1 inch or 2. But doing this is going to increase the surface area of the stem, allowing for greater water absorption. Number 5 is you're going to change the water out daily and cut the stem frequently. So the water should always look clean enough to drink. Change it out daily or every other day. The more often you can cut the stems, the better. I like to cut the stems at least every other day, once again, just small little clips at a 45-degree angle. And the reason why is, as soon as you cut a flower stem, the flower processes that as a wound that it needs to heal. So it immediately starts producing cells to help close that cut. When this happens, the flower can't take up as much water. By cutting the stems every day or every other day, you help to ensure the flower stem can continue to take up water and stay hydrated. They don't need to be major cuts, like I said. They can be small. You just need to trim enough to get rid of that old cut. All right, number 6, my final tip to help extend the vase life is to keep your flowers out of bright light and heat. All of the flowers we have talked about today love the sunshine and heat until they are cut. Yes, cut flowers are the complete opposite of rooted flowers. Treat them like vampires. Dark, cool coffins are ideal. Okay, all jokes aside, they don't need to sit in total darkness, but they do prefer less sunlight. Partial sunlight or a north-facing windowsill is perfect. I would avoid full sun or placing them by a west-facing window. Not to say you can't do this. You absolutely can place your flowers wherever your heart desires. But if you want to extend their vase life, I would try to keep them in a cooler area of your home that isn't hit hard with the afternoon sun. When it comes to plant food, I'm going to be honest, I'm really bad at using it. I'm not saying it doesn't help. I just personally don't always use it. I also don't spray my cut flower arrangements with Crowning Glory. For those that aren't familiar, Crowning Glory is a liquid you can spray on cut flowers. It's supposed to help seal in moisture, keeping them hydrated so they last longer. I personally don't notice a huge difference, so I've stopped using it. Just my experience. All right, so moving on to perennial cut flowers. These flowers may not immediately come to mind when you think of cut flower gardens, but I strongly suggest you consider mixing some in, because while they don't always provide the huge burst of color or long attractive stems like the annuals we discussed earlier, that classic cut flower look, these perennials last much longer in the garden. In other words, less work for you. No succession planting needed here. Some will bloom beautifully for a few seasons and then slowly decline, while others have some serious staying power, lasting for years, maybe even decades, without needing much care from you. So you don't have to keep growing new flowers, which is a huge bonus. All right, so the first perennial I want to discuss with you is Black-Eyed Susans. These yellow flowers are so darling. You can start them from seed. I like to purchase true Florida native Black-Eyed Susan seeds from FloridaWildflowers.com. That's Florida, Florida, wildflowers.com. They hold up so well in the garden and in a vase. Excellent, excellent cut flower. The Florida native Black-Eyed Susan blooms for a few seasons and then slowly declines. But as a bonus, if you let it self-seed, you'll have backup ready to fill in. Now, you can purchase black-eyed Susans as a potted or mature plant at the store, but it may be an annual variety, so it may not last as long. I like the Florida native seeds because they are open pollinated, which means they can easily self-seed in my yard and continue to produce new black-eyed Susan plants. Some of these fancy hybrids you see at the store are bred so that the seeds are sterile. The seeds will not produce a new plant, so you'll need to buy more and replant. The second perennial on the list is blanket flower. I have so much of this in my landscape. What's not to love about blanket flower? Known for their vibrant blooms, they have spectacular daisy-like red and yellow bicolored flowers. Once you Google it, you'll understand how it got the nickname Firewheel. You can start these from seed too. I suggest growing the Florida native blanket flower from floridawildflowers.com, as they are hardier and have longer stems compared to some of the hybrids you'll see at the big box store. I've noticed many of the hybrid blanket flowers stay pretty compact and short, lovely for a landscape border, but not for cut flowers. Also, same deal as the fancy black-eyed Susan hybrids and varieties from the nursery, many of the blanket flowers at the store have sterile seeds, or they won't produce true to type plants, so you'll need to buy more and replant. Anyway, the Florida native blanket flower will bloom profusely for a few seasons and then slowly decline, just like the black-eyed Susan. But also like the black-eyed Susan, it readily self-seeds, so your garden will always be full of blanket flowers. Number 3 is Biden's alba, aka beggar ticks. If you listened to the pollinator garden episode, you heard me talk a lot about beggar ticks. Now, you'll probably need to start beggar ticks from seed, as I have never seen it at a nursery. This guy is considered a weed, but it's actually a Florida native wildflower. If you want non-stop white daisies on the kitchen windowsill, this is the flower for you. Yes, the seeds can be annoying as they stick to clothes, but this is easily avoidable. When you're cutting your flowers to bring inside, cut off any spent flower heads that have already gone to seed. Then you shouldn't have to worry about many, if any, dropping or getting all over the place inside your home. I use them for arrangements frequently. They are long-lasting flowers both in the garden and in a vase. Once you plant them, you'll never have a shortage as they easily self-seed. Now, I want to pause here to say that if you are container gardening and you have very limited space and your goal is to max out flower power, have flowers all the time, I would stop taking notes here because the rest of the plants that we're going to discuss are not going to give you as many flowers as frequently. And I just think if space is limited, these might not be the best options if you want fresh cut flowers every week. Essentially, just the rest of the plants that we're going to discuss either don't bloom nonstop every day, all day, or they might take up a little bit more real estate. But if you have an in-ground bed or you're just patient, definitely pay attention because the rest of the plants that we discuss require way less maintenance. You can take a more lackadaisical approach with these and still enjoy flowers. Number 4 is Society Garlic, which I love to refer to as Florida's version of the daffodil. It is so precious. It has lovely, delicate lavender flowers. The flowers are smaller, which make them a perfect accent in a large arrangement, or let them shine on their own in a petite, slender vessel. Do not start Society Garlic from seed. Buy Society Garlic as a mature plant from the nursery or garden center. It's readily available year-round. You won't have any trouble finding this one. While it doesn't provide non-stop blooms, I love it because it's extremely low maintenance. You plant it once and never have to plant it again. And it's drought tolerant and has little to no pest and disease issues. Just plant it and forget about it. And when it does bloom, it's almost like a nice little surprise. Think of it as a bonus flower. I suggest planting a few of these together. That way when they do bloom, you have a decent amount of flowers. They also look really good in the garden when clumped together. Do groupings of 3 or 5. Now, disclaimer, this flower does smell a bit garlicky, hence the name. It doesn't bother me in the least. I think it's subtle enough to not be off-putting, but just FYI for those that might have a more sensitive nose. Number 5 is African iris. Oh my goodness, if you have an area of your yard that gets a bit more water, maybe there's a low spot, a depression, or maybe it's near a downspout where water drains from the roof, or it could be an area that's simply irrigated. Definitely plant some of these. So African irises are actually very drought tolerant. They don't require a ton of water, but for a cut flower garden, like if you want to max out flower power, they bloom much more frequently if given more water. So you want to plant them in an area of your yard that tends to stay more moist. Anyway, assuming it's a moist-ish area, these guys will bloom non-stop in the warmer months. It's incredible. And this is another plant that you plant once and don't have to plant again. They have long, firm stems with multiple flowers on each stem. They are available in white and a soft, creamy yellow. Do not start this one from seed. Buy it as a rooted or mature plant. They're widely available, so you'll have no issue sourcing this guy. And FYI, this is another plant that you can harvest before the flowers are fully open so that you can enjoy their blooms for even longer in the vase. Number 6 is blue porterweed. You probably wouldn't expect this flowering shrub to be on the list, but its funky, swirly stems with purplish blue flowers are so fun. Don't start this one from seed, buy it as a mature plant. Although the flowers are tiny and inconspicuous, they bloom almost year-round with little to no upkeep. Disclaimer, you'll rarely hear me say this, but do not buy the native blue porterweed. There is a Florida native blue porterweed that stays rather low, acting as a ground cover. This won't make a good cut flower. You want the more commonly sold blue porterweed. You shouldn't have any trouble finding it, as this is the one that is more widely available, but just FYI. Number 7 is firespike. This is a small to medium flowering shrub. It has gorgeous long tubular flower spikes. This plant almost reminds me of a large salvia. It's available in both red and purple flowers, but the red firespike is more hardy than the purple. So although the purple is gorgeous and tempting, I'd probably buy the red if given the choice. And same deal as the last few. Buy this pretty lady as a mature plant. I wouldn't start it from seed. And you'll be able to enjoy flowers off and on all year. So now I want to discuss tropical cut flowers. I know you probably weren't expecting this. So we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about tropical flowers, but I do want us to expand our minds for a moment and consider them. I used to be very firm on what a cut flower was. If it didn't look like something out of a British gardening magazine, just forget it. But of course, when you think this way, you're really just limiting yourself and the possibilities for your flower garden. Combine orange bird of paradise flowers or heliconia with some lush green monstera leaves or palm fronds, and you've got a bangin' display. Disclaimer, you do need a bit of patience with most tropical flowering plants. They don't bloom as quickly or as frequently as the other flowers we have discussed today, but they also require the least amount of maintenance and can last a lifetime in the garden. As an extra bonus, these tropical flowers and foliage plants are extremely hardy and oftentimes last longer in a vase than your more traditional cut flower arrangements too. If properly taken care of, these cut flowers can last 2 to 3 weeks in a vase. My absolute favorite group of tropical flowers for cut gardens is ornamental or flowering gingers. Yes, ginger. While not edible, they are related to the culinary ginger we cook with in the kitchen. One of my favorite ornamental gingers to use in a flower display is Curcuma Siam. That's curcuma, one word, C-U-R-C-U, M as in Mary, A, and then new word, Siam, S as in Sam, I as in Igloo, A as in Alpha, M as in Mary. Now, I also like to refer to curcuma as the Florida version of the tulip. It seriously is the tropical tulip. Even its foliage looks similar to tulip foliage. The flowers are available in purple, pink, and white. What I love about curcuma is it blooms more frequently than the bird of paradise and many heliconias. at least in my experience. And they even bloom profusely in a pot. I like keeping mine in a large pot, 17 to 20 inches in diameter. But if you have the space, you can definitely plant these in ground. I made a tropical 4th of July arrangement for a client last year using white curcuma, fresh cut palm leaves, potted red Guzmania bromeliads, and paper palm fronds, which had been dyed dark blue. The paper fronds were from Michael's craft store. Yes, I used a combination of cut flowers with potted rooted plants and faux plants. This can totally be done and look good. Like you guys, I was pretty frickin' proud of how this arrangement turned out. I find that when you combine faux plants with live plants, it sort of tricks the eye. It makes the faux plants look more real. Anyway, I used a glass cube as the vessel for this arrangement. The fresh cut palm fronds were from a live cat palm planted in ground in the landscape. I just cut them, filled a few floral water tubes with water, and then placed each palm stem in a floral water tube. The cat palm leaves and the faux blue palm fronds were placed in the back and along the sides of the cube. This was a 3-sided arrangement that was displayed against a wall. The red Guzmania bromeliads were in the center of the arrangement. These are the ones that you see all the time at the grocery store or at the garden center. They have the long red spikes growing out of the center. I moved them from their pots, and with roots still intact, I placed them in the cube. The large glossy green bromeliad leaves totally helped to enhance the tropical vibes of this arrangement. The white curcuma was from a potted curcuma plant. I cut the flowering stems from the plant and placed each stem in floral water tubes. And then I placed the curcuma flowers throughout the arrangement. The curcuma and the Guzmania bromeliads looked like fireworks shooting out of the arrangement, which was sort of my plan. So fitting for the 4th of July. And I used sphagnum moss to fill in the cube. If you want to see the arrangement, you can view it on my website, rootsredefined.com. Just go over to the previous projects tab and then scroll down to the client titled The Woods. Scroll through the photos for that client and you'll come across it. It's the only red, white, and blue arrangement there. When it comes to tropical plants, definitely buy them as mature plants. Don't attempt to start them from seeds or cuttings. You'll be waiting a lifetime. All right, so that wraps up episode 12 of The Florida Gardener. We will see you next time for episode 13. And in the meantime, if you'd like to download one of my Etsy garden templates, purchase seeds, or check out my social, you can access everything through my website. That's rootsredefined.com. Roots, ROOTS, redefined, REDEFINED.com. All right, thanks guys. We'll see you again soon.